the success of F1 and what it means for future Apple theatrical releases, Prime Target, and more. This is TV Plus Talk on MacVoices.
Hello and welcome to TV Plus Talk. I'm Charlotte Henry. He is Chuck Joyner. Hey Chuck, how are you?
I'm great, Charlotte. It's good to see you. Glad you're back from your travels and fully engaged with Apple TV Plus.
Certainly, yeah, we're back. We're here to discuss all things Apple TV Plus as we do more and more frequently. There's some really interesting stuff to talk this week, actually. What the main thing, and we'll dive straight into it, actually isn't on TV Plus yet, but it is a piece of Apple work. And that is, of course, F1 starring Brad Pitt. Have you had a chance to go to the cinema/theatre, as you call it, and watch this, Chuck, yet?
I did not, Charlotte. It was just a busy kind of weekend, but I definitely want to see this in the theater because the trailers have been, at least from my perspective, really amazing. And so I'm anxious to see if it holds up, and especially since there was so much effort put into this to put it on the big screen where it sounds like it probably should be.
Yeah, it does seem to have the kind of big screen vibe, doesn't it? It's obviously a film about the story around F1 in particular. We'll delve into the story in a minute, but I want to delve into the numbers first of all. So we learned, I've got the numbers up via Deadline. We learned on Sunday morning that it's done $144 million worldwide, 55.6 million of those are domestic, i.e. the US. That's not a terrible return, I would say, is it? That's pretty good.
I think so, especially given the current state of the movie industry, at least here in the US, and also some of the disappointing numbers Apple has had for some other theatrical releases that they thought were going to blow the socks off everyone, and they just kind of didn't.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're employing Brad Pitt and Javier Bardem, you do expect to get your money back, but it's a pretty decent start, I would say. What do you think about this tactic of going straight to theatre?
You know, Charlotte, I've been giving this a lot of thought, and I think that not just Apple, but I think the movie industry needs to evolve a bit, because I think that some of the I don't know that the movie theaters have to all be blockbusters, all be super intense action films. But I think that the days of being able to just stick something up on the big screen and say, oh, it's a rom-com, it's a comedy. And even with a big name, you know, it's just not going to pull people into the theaters at the expense. Because most of us, and this may be a first world situation, and that's fine, but most of us have a decent screen at home. If you care about video at all, you have invested in a decent sound system. No, it's probably not going to be, you know, the theater experience, but we're back to that question of what's good enough. And I'm starting to wonder if, you know, for rom-coms and for comedies and for the super socially conscious videos and films that are coming out, I'm not sure that people feel justified in going and spending the kind of money that the theaters are asking for, paying for the popcorn, and the drinks that are ridiculously priced, but that's the way the theaters have to make money. And I think the theaters maybe need to think about this, as well as the folks that are making the movies. And now that brings us back to Apple. This clearly is one that, and you just said, Brad Pitt. I'm not sure Brad Pitt's the thing that's selling the movie. It's not a bad thing, but I think about some of the earlier movies that didn't work out so well, and they had pretty high profile stars and directors, and it just didn't happen.
Yes. A lot of what you said is true. I think Brad Pitt does help sell tickets, let's be clear still. think Javier Bardem's to help star ticket. There's Damson Idris in there. I think they all help sell tickets. I just want to go back to your initial point because I was nodding along, sort of like one of those dogs, because I agreed with an awful lot of what you said. I actually have written a bit about this in the book at October called Streaming Wars, about this idea that for most people, watching at home is a more comfortable experience because their system at home is good enough. They don't have to listen to some random person chomping on overpriced snacks. They can put, how many times have I moaned to you about how long movies are? And, you can pause and use the bathroom and get, top up your drink or whatever. I think for a lot of people, being at home is, if not a better experience, a more than good enough experience. And the industry hasn't really come to contend with that. So I agree with a lot of what you said there. Of course, for Apple and similar, I think being in the theatres gives them an air of credibility still. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit like, look, we're a proper movie. It's a proper movie. We're in the theatres. It can be nominated for awards, blah, 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 blah. I think that still is a thing that exists. I don't know if you agree with that, but I think there's a lot of that going on as well.
No, I do agree with it. I think, though, that Apple, especially the way they're doing things, I think they need to be cognizant of what they're putting in the theaters, more so than ever before. Not just the theaters, at some point, I think, felt maybe aspirational for Apple, that we need the big stars, we need the big story to justify getting into the theaters. And now I think it's changed where we need to strategically think about what we're going to push into the theaters versus what we're going to push out through our own channels. And I just think it's an evolving world out there that Hollywood and the movie theaters have failed to recognize.
Do you think, though, that risk making some of what they put out a bit of a two-tier release system? Like, this film is really important because it's going straight to theatre. Some of the other films they put out won't be as important because they're just going to I say in inverted commas, going to TV Plus. Do you think there's a risk of that?
I think there could be, as we all learn to think about movie theaters differently. And that's assuming anybody subscribes to my theories. Some people are still going to see the theater as a theater, and they may or may not be thinking about it deeply as far as, okay, do I go and invest my money and time? And I want to talk about that in a minute, in F1 this weekend, or do I want to watch either something that has now come out on streaming, not come out on video, but come out on streaming?
You nearly did it.
Yeah,
you're going to get it in Blockbuster.
Well, exactly, yeah. But is it on streaming where I can enjoy it in my home? To your point, with my snacks and in my environment, that's it's a tough choice. But I want to throw one more thing in the mix too, and see what your reaction is to it, and that is this attention span thing that we're all watching develop. And it seems.
You mean that I don't have one?
Well, we all have smaller ones, and they seem to be getting smaller as we go along, or shorter, because now we have AI, and AI is taking long things and summarizing them for us. And we have the TL too long don't read thing. Yeah, TLDR. That okay, so. You send me an article and it's too long, don't read, but here's a summary. And it's like, well, that kind of misses the point. I wonder how much this is spilling over into the way we all evaluate our entertainment options and our entertainment dollars.
Oh, I'm sure it does hugely. And I think it absolutely does hugely. I think it's a major part of it. And I don't quite understand, as our attention spans are definitely getting shorter, why movies seem to be getting longer, but maybe we'll have that philosophical conversation another time. Back to Formula One, or F1 the movie. it's about a driver called Sonny Hayes. That's who Brad Pitt plays, who was apparently dubbed the greatest that never was. He was a promising phenomenon. Then in the 1990s had a terrible accident that nearly ended his career. He is brought back by Ruben Cervantes, who is played by Javier Bardem 30 years later. Can they turn this struggling F1 team back into glory? He drives alongside Joshua Pearce, who's played by Damson Idris, who's a sort of hotshot rookie type character. Of course, I'll read you from the PR blurb. But as the engines roar, Sonny's past catches up with him, and he finds that Formula One, your teammate is your fiercest competition, and the road to redemption is not something you can travel alone. Is this something you would go and watch in the cinema? You seem to be quite up for it.
I am because of the trailer. I'm not an F1 guy, and ordinarily I would say, I'll wait for it to come to video. But the trailers have been so effective in capturing my attention, not just from the story standpoint, but also from the action standpoint, that I definitely want to go see this in the theater. I sincerely hope I get the opportunity to see it in an IMAX theater, because it seems to be have been designed specifically for that, with the amazing sound system as well as the amazing screen experience. So I feel like this one, sure, it'll translate down to streaming just fine, but it feels like it's going to be a movie that will be best experienced in that environment, and I want to go see it in that environment.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think if it wasn't an Apple film, I'm not sure I would. Like you, I'm not a very big F1 fan. It's one of the few sports I actually don't follow that closely. I've never forgiven, I've never got over Lewis Hamilton being robbed by Max Verstappen, however many years ago that was. And it sort of made me completely turn off the sport. But obviously this is not about the sport per se. I could see it. I'd probably be tempted if I wanted to in one afternoon to go watch this. I don't know if I would if it wasn't concerned with Apple and I couldn't pretend I was working by watching it. But I think I could be tempted by it. I have to say, I think we're going to have to, on this show, watch really closely this cinematic release schedule for Apple, because I think it's so interesting the way this is happening. And we should point out this film has come out alongside with Warner Brothers, which obviously that relationship involved, previously was Ted Lasso. That's how that came out. So it's quite interesting, this dynamic as well of Apple working with Warner Brothers as well.
Yes. And again, these partnerships may be necessary in the world going forward, that Apple can't just completely go it alone. So, and you're right, because I don't think I'm wrong that after a couple of the less successful movies that Apple put out in the theaters, that they were reevaluating their theater strategy. And
I have vague memories of stories like that.
Yeah, and so was the reevaluation that we're going to have to do what you and I talked about earlier here, do it more strategically, or are they just going to only go for the big action super blockbuster kind of movies to put in theaters? To your point, are they going to try to strategically release some things, maybe even in limited release, so that they are available for the awards? Because that seems to be such a big thing for so many people. I'm not one of them, but I know you feel pretty strongly about them, or either that or you just do.
I feel strongly that it matters to the companies.
Oh, okay.
That's how I feel about it.
Fair point.
Because I think it really does. Anyway, when awards season ramps up, we'll do that. But I think it does matter to the companies, and you do have certain limits of how much you have to have stuff in the theaters to qualify for those awards.
Yeah. So, it's a business that the movie business is not one I pay a lot of attention to. I probably am paying more attention to it now because of Apple TV Plus and Apple's whole video strategy. But you brought up a really interesting point, though. Would I be paying as much attention to this if it wasn't an Apple film? And I think I have to confess I probably wouldn't. But if they could capture enough of my attention to watch the trailer, I probably would say yes. I would be more likely than not to want to see it in an IMAX theater. So just the fact that it is an Apple phone, or Apple Fit session seems like a good thing.
Very interesting. Yeah. So anyway, that's out now. You can watch it, I think, in lots and lots of theatres. Obviously, Zach Van Amberg and Jamie Ehrlich have put out statements being how excited they are, calling it an unforgettable cinematic experience. They're thrilled at the global response, etc., etc., etc. So lots of positivity coming out of Apple for this. And I suspect we'll be talking about this film a bit more in the future. Now, you wanted to tell me about a show that I haven't actually got into yet, but you have been really enjoying, which is Prime Target.
Yes, and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. I did not feel like the trailers or the write-ups that I saw for it in advance of it coming out, or I should say in advance of me starting to watch it, really were that compelling. And I'm so happy that I did give it a shot, because it did not sound like a movie that would have the kind of appeal that, at least from my way of thinking, does. And I want to be real careful here because I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen it, so I don't want to give you any spoilers.
I'm going to watch it, so no spoilers. Behave.
Yeah, no spoilers. But I will say this: that it centers on a mathematician. And right there, that's going to wipe a lot of people out. No offense to mathematicians, but,
a young math postgraduate called Edward Brooks, who is played by Leo Wardell.
Right. And so, how many times do you see mathematicians the hero of a film? Doesn't happen very often, or series. But this really, if people haven't paid attention to what I like as I've revealed it, I like things that I don't see coming. I like things that have a few twists and turns, but maybe are so twisty and turny and so involved that you can't follow the story. And I felt like this strikes that really nice balance with some unexpected aspects of it. And I'm not ready to say science fiction-y things, but definitely technology-oriented things in the film that I think were, again, something that pulled me in. So I would really ask you to give it an episode or two shot. And if it works for you, great. And if it doesn't, that's fine. But I'd love to know if it works for you. So you, Charlotte, and anybody out there.
Yeah, I'll have to dive into this. So the idea is, if this mathematician, as you say, he succeeds in finding a pattern in prime numbers, and that will give him the key to every computer in the world. He begins to realize, according to the blurb, that an unseen enemy is trying to destroy his idea before it's even born. He comes into contact with this female NSA agent, Taylor Sanders, played by Contessa Swindle, and who is watching his behavior. Obviously, there is a conspiracy theory that they work together to find out or whatever. You're not allowed to say anything. But this show actually came out in January and finished. There was 8 episodes in the season, and it came out which finished in March. I have to say, this brings us back to our usual regular talking point, Chuck, of how have I not heard about this? Why is there not more talk about this? This is the classic thing we keep talking about with TV Plus, that they have really interesting stuff on there that sort of just disappears into the ether. I until you told me you'd watch this, I really wasn't aware of it at all.
I don't even remember how I became aware of it. It ended up on my watch list, and because I'm so far behind on things that I want to watch, that there just isn't enough time in the day.
Sure.
But I got down to this, and it's like, oh, okay, well, take a shot at it. It might be interesting. And to the point we said earlier, it's on Apple TV Plus. So right there for me, there's a check mark in the right direction, that it's worth at least checking out, because it looks like something I might be interested in. And so,
it's 45 minutes an episode, so nothing too grueling. to get through. It's all pretty watchable. I again, this just brings me back to, I find it sort of frustrating that there's obviously interesting stuff there. Look, maybe this is not going to be a blockbuster show like some of the others we've seen on TV Plus, but this sounds like an interesting show. It's 8 episodes. You know, why does it take so long to find this stuff on TV Plus? And we keep having this conversation, Chuck. Since we started this show, we've had this conversation so many times that I fear our listeners and viewers are getting bored of us having it. But I think it's such an important point, and I don't know why a company of of Apple's power, with its marketing arsenal that it hasn't fixed this problem.
I don't know if they don't want to throw the money at some of their own shows the way they do maybe at some of the movies, because I've definitely seen Apple TV Plus films, and not just the ones we're talking about in the theater, but just the regular ones. I see them pop up in advertisements on something like Amazon Prime or whatever, and that's great. You know, it's like, okay, there's a little more awareness, but all the ones that we've talked about, and the ones that I still haven't gotten to, there's some great shows out there that you're right, no one's talking about, and I feel like it's up to us to try to bring some of them to the fore, and maybe help spread to our friends, who then will spread to theirs. There is one thing I want to.
It's not our job. We're writers. We're podcasters. We're not the Apple PR machine. It's not down to us. I don't, there seems to, since the project launch of TV Plus, there has been this problem.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I can't answer the question any more than we've been able to answer it.
Jamie Ehrlich, Zach Van Amber, come on this show. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah. I do want to add one thing about the series. And that is that it wraps the first season in one of those very nice fashions where the story arc is concluded. The story could continue very easily, and I sincerely hope it gets a season 2. But if it doesn't, it's not one you have to worry about, like, oh, I'm going to be left hanging, like some other shows on other outlets that I could say, they get canceled, and then you feel like, well, what happened? So I felt very satisfied by the end that this story arc is wrapped up with just enough threads that it could keep on going. But if it doesn't, I'm not going to feel like I wasted my time.
That's very interesting. I was going to ask you about that because, first of all, we know that Apple is pretty lethal at cutting off shows that are not doing enough for them. Is over the last 6 years or whatever it is, there's been enough of that. So I'm interested you say that. We haven't heard any news yet of a renewal. It did end in March. So we haven't heard anything more about season 2 yet.
Right.
So
Charlotte, help me out, because you and I don't necessarily have the same tastes.
No.
I can't think of any show that I have watched on Apple TV Plus that got one of those axes that came down and left me hanging. Can you think of any?
No, but there have been. There have been plenty that have got chopped off really quite early. But no, nothing that I think we particularly enjoyed or got into. But there definitely have been a number of shows that have got the axe.
Well, yeah, got the axe, but did they leave the audience hanging? I mean,
I think so. There have been some that just haven't, pulled their weight and have gone.
Okay. Because
for instance, have we discussed it? Well, we discussed Mythic Quest, didn't we? That has suddenly disappeared.
Okay, I take it back. Mythic Quest did come down. They sort of wrapped it a little bit. They could have probably wrapped it better if they had a little more time.
And they've gone back to the revamped final episode. A couple more things before we leave. Just things that are coming out. Because there's quite a lot coming out there's bits that's come out in June, and in July, I think this will appeal to you, Chuck. Foundation Season 3 launch is not that long away. 11th of July, 2025. Are you excited for this one?
Very much, very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed the first 2 seasons of Foundation. I hope they continue it for a long time, because if you're familiar with Asimov's trilogy and even the subsequent works, there's a lot to be mined there if they want to, even though, to be really fair about it, that the series has not followed the books exactly that closely. But there's enough there to see the relationship, at least I think. And I just want to see it keep on going because it's so well done.
Completely changing sort of direction. There's something called The Wild Ones, which looks like a nature documentary to me, coming out as well that same day. We've got Acapulco season 4 is coming out on the 23rd of July. Just before that is a brand new, we discussed this on the show last time because I was quite excited about it, is Snoopy Presents a Summer Musical, which is one I think we were saying at the time, it was the first new Peanuts original or Peanuts special for quite a while. So that's coming out the 18th of July. So in July already, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 new things coming out that we know of. Just that beginning of August, the 1st of August, season 4 of Stillwater, which is a kind of sweet kids meditative animation thing, which is rather nice. And completely different is something called Chief of War, which is performed by a predominantly Polynesian cast led by Jason Momoa. It's an epic, unprecedented telling of the unification and colonization of Hawaii at the start of the 18th century. So there's quite a lot of different things going on Apple TV Plus, given that this is over the summer as well.
Yeah, I personally want to see the King of War. I think that looked, the trailer.
Chief of War.
Chief of War, sorry, King of War. Chief of War. That looked really, really interesting. Not just because it's Jason Momoa, but just the subject matter sounded interesting. The spectacle looked interesting. So I'm anxious for that one. The other ones, I have to go back and look because I haven't even, other than your comments about Snoopy, I didn't recognize any of those, which we're back to.
No, there's quite a few bits. There's a few bits going on. There's other bits coming out before this, but just to jump ahead to September, because we will definitely be talking about this, is season 4 of The Morning Show on 17th of September. You've mentioned about how some of the shows have been wrapped up. The end of season 3 of The Morning Show, which was slightly less painful than season 2, which I found unwatchable. But season 3, I think, sort of got the show back again, even though it was a bit daft. It'll be interesting to see what they do with season 4, because I don't know how much legs. I'm disappointed to say this. I really wanted it to be good. I'm not sure how much legs The Morning Show has left, but maybe season 4 will redeem it. What do you think?
I agree with you, although I will add that I enjoy the characters. And so
yes,
that will bring me to season 4 without question. But yeah, there were aspects of season 3 that seemed to be just a little shaky.
Just a bit. But we do have season 5 of Slow Horses as well on its way. So there's a lot happening. And what's interesting, maybe this is something we need to talk about when we have a bit more time on a future show, when there are less things to kind of review and dive into, is it now feels to me that Apple has some of these tentpole shows and series that you can sort of not quite build your year around, but you can build some of your viewing schedule around. Slow Horses, Morning Show. We know Ted Lasso's coming back. Foundation in your case. We've already seen season 2 of The Buccaneers come out. There are these kind of shows that it's building the service around now.
And it works, except for the fact that not enough people know about all the great shows. That's the biggest problem that we have.
Let's have, and of course Severance, which has been a huge hit. We will come back and discuss perhaps that aspect of TV Plus in a future show. Is there anything else you want to dive into before we head off?
No, I think we've hit everything that was on our agenda. Once again, if you if you are interested in some high quality shows and not just one or two that you may have heard of, check out Apple TV Plus. There's a lot there. If you're looking for a summer alternative, there are plenty of things that, Charlotte, maybe that's something we need to do the next show. We need to make a summer playlist of favorite shows that maybe have been overlooked so that we can tell people, yes, you need to catch up on this, and not just one or two.
Totally. Well, you've done your PR job. Very good. I hope they send you the check. I heard Jamie and Zach send you a big bouquet of flowers and the check. But yeah, there is some really good stuff there. I'm going to go dive into Prime Target, I think, because you've given that a very good endorsement. It does seem quite appealing. Chuck, where can people keep up with you?
MacVoices.com. That's where you'll find everything. We do a live show Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, but those shows also show up in an edited format in our feeds. So if you're not in my time zone or one that's convenient, you won't be missing out. And on the socials, you can find.
Well, I'm missing out because I never get to be on it.
Well, you're welcome, but it's just you have to stay up until a crazy hour of the morning.
So yeah, check Chuck out at MacVoices. I'm at Charlotte A. Henry across social media and theedition.net. Please tell your friends, family, people you don't even like, frankly, about this show. We put it out on both of our feeds. We're trying to spend more and more time building this show because there's so much going on in the TV Plus space. So I hope you'll join us again. And thanks very much.
Charlotte, before we go, your book.
What have I done? I do have a book coming out in October. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about it every show until then. But if you head over to Amazon and look for my name or the book Streaming Wars, you can pre-order it, and that will make a huge difference. And I'll love you even more. So thank you very much for that as well.
Thank you. We'll see you next time. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.